कर दे।
Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, originally Cape Canaveral Air Force Station, and that's where NASA launched all of its early missions. NASA started way back in 1958. Our first manned mission was the Mercury mission. That was all launched down in this area down in here. And then we went to the Gemini missions after that, and that was all up in this area right there, and some of them was right up there. Then we went to the early Apollo missions, where it was right there. And right now we use Launch Complex 41. The United Launch Alliance uses that to launch their Atlas V rocket, and down here Launch Complex 40 is used by SpaceX. They launch the Falcon 9 from there sometimes. They also launch up on the Kennedy Space Center side. So as we come right across here, this is where Kennedy Space Center starts. This is the VAB, that is the Vehicle Assembly Building. That's the world's largest single-story building. And it had to be so large and just one story tall because that's where they assembled all of the Saturn V rockets that took us to the moon. That rocket was 363 feet tall. We also assembled all 135 of our space shuttles right inside that building there. And this past year, we assembled our brand new Space Launch System rocket, the SLS, for the Artemis missions inside of that building. Right up here, this area here, this is the shuttle landing field. So 135 space shuttles, 78 of them landed right back here on the Kennedy Space Center at that shuttle landing field. Now the others that landed were out at Edwards Air Force Base. They would be flown back here, piggyback on a 747 jet, and they once again would land right out there. There are two launch pads at the Kennedy Space Center, 39A and 39B. Now 39A is probably the most famous launch pad in the world. That's where all 12 men that walked on the moon launched from, right there on 39A. We also launched 82 of our space shuttles from 39A, and back in 2014, we leased that launch pad out to SpaceX. They launched their Falcon 9 from there, and also the Falcon Heavy. Whenever they're launching up to the International Space Station, they always use 39A. Now 39B, no slouch either. We launched 53 of our space shuttles off of 39B. The Russian Soyuz test mission back in 1975. That's when we launched our Apollo capsule up into space. The Russians launched their Soyuz capsule. We rendezvoused and docked with the Russians, reached out and shook hands with them, and that signified the end of the space race. Also, just last month, that's where we launched Artemis 1 from, taking us back to the moon for the first time in 50 years. And all of the Artemis missions will be launching right there on 39B. So the Kennedy Space Center, we are a multi-user spaceport, and what that means, it's not just NASA launching rockets here, there are many people. We have the Boeing Corporation launching rockets. We have Blue Origin getting ready to launch from here. That's run by the founder of Amazon, Jeff Bezos. And then SpaceX, run by Elon Musk. They launch a lot of rockets from here. They've got one going tomorrow morning very early. We'll talk about that in a little bit. These are the rockets we're currently sending up right from here. This is the Delta IV Heavy. This rocket, way back in 2014, launched the first test flight of the Orion capsule. That's the one that went up to the moon just last month. Now these two here, these are SpaceX rockets, Falcon 9 and the Falcon Heavy. The difference between the two of them, the Falcon Heavy has these extra boosters on the side, allowing them to bring heavier payloads up into space. And then we have the Atlas V rocket as well, and we use that for Boeing's new Starliner. These are our upcoming launches. SpaceX has a Starlink mission, that's tomorrow. It's scheduled right now at 4:40 a.m. That's going to go off launch pad number 40 there. Now the Starlink, that's where they're setting up all those high-speed internet satellites to blanket the Earth to bring high-speed internet to all those people that are unable to get it other ways. Then SpaceX has another launch coming up next Monday, that's January 2nd. This one, more reasonable time if you want to get up and watch it, 9:55 a.m. Again, it's off of launch pad 40. This is Transporter 6. They're setting up a lot of satellites from other companies other than SpaceX. Now, this is the International Space Station. If you are 20 years old or younger, your whole life, someone has been floating above you in space. That's how long that's been inhabited up there. The International Space Station is so large, you can view it in space with the naked eye. It's about the size of an American football field, and with that size, you just gotta look up and you can see it. But you have to know where and when to look. So we recommend go to spotthestation.nasa.gov. You put your location in, and it will tell you where and when to look up to see the International Space Station. Now, right here, these are the two vehicles that are taking our astronauts back and forth to the International Space Station right now. This is the Russian Soyuz capsule, and this is SpaceX's Crew Dragon capsule. These are the 7 astronauts currently aboard the International Space Station. There are 3 Russians, there's 3 Americans, and there's 1 man from Japan up there right now. This is mission number 68, that's their mission patch. There have been now 68 missions up to the International Space Station. And down here, these are the flags of all the different countries participating in the ISS program. At this point, we're going to show you a quick video telling you what's happening this week up on the International Space Station.
Welcome to Space to Ground. I'm Dan Hewitt. 2022 was another transformational year on the International Space Station. We broke some records, welcomed some new space travelers, and took a major step at expanding our space fleet, which is never not going to be cool to say.
Touchdown. Mark Vande Hai and Fyodor Dubirov back home 1 year after leaving the planet.
NASA's Mark Vande Hai broke the record for the longest single space flight in history by an American when he came home in March of this year. Mark and cosmonaut Fyodor Dubirov spent an astonishing 355 days in space, giving researchers on Earth the chance to observe the effects of living and working in space for a really long time. We have more than 20 years worth of data on dozens of humans living in microgravity for 6 months at a time, but only a handful of data points for periods longer than that. With round-trip missions to Mars expected to last years, Space Station continues to serve as a vital proving ground to make sure that we'll be ready to take care of those first explorers. This spring also had some historical firsts, including the first ever private astronaut mission with AX-1. Axiom's first spaceflight brought a crew of 4 aboard SpaceX's Dragon to spend 16 days living on the station, conducting research and outreach, and this was another major step in NASA's role to kickstart an economy in low Earth orbit, with new infrastructure and services offered by private industry to open up space to more and more people. And something I got hyped for personally, Boeing's Starliner made its first successful trip to the station and back again. The Orbital Flight Test 2 mission was an end-to-end test of Starliner, providing critical data on operating this brand new spacecraft in outer space. Everything we learned from it, from launch to docking to landing, will help make the next flight, which will carry our astronauts on board for the very first time, as safe and successful as possible. And those highlights happened just in the first half of this year. If you know Spacestation, you know the work didn't stop. It is actually still going as we look to close out the year. Throughout, we saw 5 crew launches fly to the space station, split between the SpaceX Dragon and the Russian Soyuz. 10 NASA astronauts, 8 Roscosmos cosmonauts, 2 ESA, 1 JAXA, 4 private astronauts, and a partridge in the pear tree called the station home this year. Our expedition crews are on track to perform 14 spacewalks this year. And a lot of that work was installing upgraded solar arrays to continue generating electricity for the station for years to come, and doing some major reconfiguration on the Russian sector. They also welcomed 5 cargo vehicles from Russia, Northrop Grumman, and SpaceX, with commercial resupply missions enabling more than 100 new U.S. science investigations and technology demonstrations, continuing to improve on our capabilities for the Artemis missions to our moon and directly benefiting life back on Earth. And with Artemis 1 successfully complete, the work we're doing on station to develop the capabilities needed for those future missions to address everything from food and water supply to materials like cement needed for surface infrastructure to refining medical treatments for remote patients continues to make sure we're ready when human boots are leaving trails in lunar regolith once more.
કે 10 મિનિટ વોટ્સએપ એટલે ડિલે થઈ જાય એ સપ્ટેમ્બર હવે સ્કેડ્યુલ હતું અમે ઘરમાં મળવાનું જોઈએ લાઈવ જોવા મળી જાય બાકી આ તો લોકો કેમ છે જોવા નહીં મળે અહીં લાગે છે બસ
regards to Kennedy Space Center, do keep in mind that this is a wildlife refuge. We're sitting on we use actually we're 140,000 acres. We only use 7,000 of it. So if you look at the roadsides and the waterways, good possibility you may see some wildlife, maybe even a gator or 2. I will tell you on the way back, I know where one hides, a real big fat cat, as far as a gator. So anyway, yesterday I seen about 50 boars, wild boars. We have a lot of animals here, folks. So just sit back, relax, try to learn. If this is your first time coming to Kennedy Space Center and going to the Saturn V Center, inside's a rocket that's the size of a football field. We're going what they call direct, which, because we have so many people the next 2 days, that we have to try to get there as quick as we can in order to keep accommodating the people. We'll mic out stuff for you folks if I see anything.
Ignition sequence start. And they'll step off the land now. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Now if you look over here on your right, if you see any little heads sticking up, they're usually turtles, and where there's turtles, there's gators, because the turtles are very tasty.
We have pondered our place amongst the stars since the dawn of humankind. We've looked at the stars with wonder and amazement. The more questions we have.
I'm Emily Calandrelli, and today you'll be following me behind the gates on this exclusive bus tour of Kennedy Space Center. Our journey will take us past active facilities and end at the visitor complex's own Apollo Saturn V Center.
But before we begin this journey, just like every NASA mission, our number one goal is to return home safely. So always stay seated while the bus is in motion. Please, no food or drinks on the bus with the exception of water. Please keep conversation to a minimum so others may hear and enjoy the tour. No photography is permitted at the security gates.
Our knowledge of the universe. As you venture behind the gates, you'll find a community of the most talented, dedicated, motivated workforce anywhere in the world who believe in the unlimited potential of space exploration. This is an active spaceport where new things are happening every day. You never know what you might see, so enjoy your tour.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, straight ahead. I was just marveling over the skies. This would be the ultimate day for a launch. Anyway, the Vehicle Assembly Building, VAB, they call it, everything here has an acronym. That building is where all the shuttles were made, all the Saturn V rockets, and now the Artemis system, or SLS they call it, Space Launch System. When they made that rocket, it's about 9 school buses high. It took off about 2.5 weeks ago. That's going to be a rocket that takes us to Mars, is what they're aiming for. So anyway, Vehicle Assembly Building straight ahead. That's about 5 miles from that bridge back there to there, believe it or not. It's a real big building.
The sheer scale of this building.
It's like your requirements are set, your launch commit criteria are understood, your procedures are ready to go, and your team is trained. The folks that sit in this room on launch day, they have a tough job, and that's to determine if the flight and the ground systems are go or no go.
Okay, so I wanted to say that because they gave her this job and she took that Artemis system and the SLS had 4 leaks in it. She brought it back and fixed everything, and then it finally took off, and I got to watch that launch. So the Vehicle Assembly Building, this is all considered Launch Complex, Industrial Complex 39A and B, okay? Behind the VAB is the Launch Control Center, the LCC. Houston, we have a problem. And then when they open up that...
As you enter, please move your way to the front of the theater to make room for the guests behind you. Our presentation will begin shortly. In order to make room for the guests entering behind you.
When history is not being made, destiny is being embraced. 5, 4,
for the second time, we did not aim at the moon. We aimed at where the moon was going to be 3 days. Now, imagine the person you're shooting the ball to is covered with magnet.
Ladies and gentlemen, please watch your step and use handrails while on the stairs. As a courtesy to others, we ask that there be no smoking or flash photography during the presentation.
38-year-old American
is impossible.
Facility space and back 36 minutes. Is this real? We're in space?
Like COVID is expensive. You're done. No kidding, Mom, I heard you cry.
Journey to Mars Explore.
Everything is they got what they paid for.
Yeah, we're all coming outside now.
How's your real life? Pero ko gila siya. Ay, gusto daw. Ay, ito cover ko siya. Ano ka na ako? Mau mana ka? Hindi ka na lang natin propaganda.
His tongue, my back is bleeding up. Yet still there it is.
एक लाइन में पढ़ लाइन में पढ़ salt mass. So look at here, we go. See, bold design. But animals ने
Option.
પેપર તમે એને પેપર વખત તે હા દુકાનનો બાઈક તું ને પેલે ગાડીમાં કેવી રાખજે ચાલે
કોઈ રાત્રે ઉઠાડ દે
અરે હું બાપા
Okay, કોઈ નહીં છે
તો પેલા ગાડીને કેવું પડે આ બધું ક્લીન કરેલું હોય તેનું
Yeah. Going to lunch. Go to the moon. કેટલું બ્રાઇટ છે યા જો સાઉન્ડ અત્યારે આવ્યું યા